Welcome back to the show, guys. You're gonna see and meet Marcel Smits. He is making really interesting breakthroughs in peace finance, specifically at peacefinance.org. If you type in peacefinance.org, you can go check out everything that Marcel's up to. He's got over 25 years of experience in peacemaking, conflict zones, and now he's doing something really unique to advance peace, not just in Europe, but hopefully all around the world. There's 55 active conflicts right now, and we need solutions. So, Marcel, I'm so glad, so blessed to have you here on the show. Could you real quickly share with us, who you really are, and what exactly is peace finance today?
But no, thanks, Shane, and thank you for having me on the show. It's great to be here. So, yeah, no, I'm happy to say a few things about myself. You gave me already a nice introduction. So, I am indeed have been working in conflict-affected countries and fragile settings for many years. And that's where my background is also it's in peace building. It is in conflict analysis. I work with on the ground with local communities in places in Africa and in South Asia, in Latin America, so in many different places. Yeah, that's been my background, and yeah, the last few years. And I was telling you this before we actually started recording that the my intention of my motivation to move into peace finance, and I'll explain in a bit what that entails, was partly motivated by frustration. I mentioned that to you. Seeing great things happening on the ground as part of the peace building, but at the same time, when stability was created in many of the places that I worked in, I've also seen that when the investments start coming in, without actually the proper safeguards in place, that sometimes, or very frequently, unintentionally, they just do more harm. And it is such a shame because finance can really build on that peace, that stability that has been gradually established by many peace building organizations. And that's think about what can we do really to bring these two different worlds together. And on the one hand, the peace building world, and on the other hand, the finance world, because at the moment they're just operating completely separate from each other, and often then it's quite unnecessary. And how can these two worlds really bridge together? Um, and so peace finance sort of just gradually just emerged from a very simple question: so what if we could design finance to actually contribute to peace? Eh? And what if we could give peace builders and innovators, including peace tech innovators, a structure that translate that contribution into something that is investable? And that's what I've been working on for the last 3 4 years, is with Interpeace, an organization, a peace building organization based in Geneva, that had set up an finance for peace team or an initiative to start creating peace finance principles and a standard that would be needed, and a taxonomy. And there's also and then we can get into a bit more detail, but that is how it all started. And that is also why I've built recently peacefinance.org. It's meant to be a platform where innovators, startups, peace builders, and also investors really come together, right? And to just share tools, share experiences, and learn about how to build peace positive solutions. Yeah, and this is also where I think peace tech, for instance, because I think we'll be interested to talk about that as well. Is really how that comes, how that connects to peace finance, eh? Because I really think that both of them really complement each other. On the one is bringing innovation, is bringing data, visibility, and the other one, peace finance, is really all about standards, safeguards, and investability. And so that is, yeah, that's where I'm coming from.
That's great. Let's dig into it. So
Mm,
this is a great conversation for those who care about investing, who care about humanity, the world, peace,
mm.
and who are maybe building something to advance peace in a conflict zone or just anywhere in the world, really. So what is positive peace investing today?
What the, yeah, peace positive investments are really about. That is those investments that intentionally contribute to peace, that have that and that create that uh, what we call that additionality, something that is happening beyond what is normally would happen with investments, whether that be social investments or green investments or other types of investments, that it's really contributing to things like, let's make it really concrete, things like social cohesion, for instance, that it's addressing exclusion, that's bringing in the marginalized groups, for instance. Those are the type of things that it creates trust as well, and trust is good for markets, as we know. So that is what is that is what peace finance is really about, and what a peace positive investment means in the end.
Got it. And so is Finance for Peace different than peacefinance.org? Are they one and the same, or is one a hub of the other?
They're different. Finance for Peace is now being established as a standard setting and certification organization. So it looks out. It really it's like it's kind of what we've tried to do with Finance for Peace is what green finance has done with investments that try to be be green and be climate sensitive,
Mhm.
is to ensure that not similar to what we've seen in green finance, the greenwashing that would take place, and that all kinds of claims would be made that are not really genuine or that cannot be verified. Or we want to be sure is what is when something is really peace positive. How do you measure that? So that is where Finance for Peace comes in. It actually gives that kind of label, that stamp that says, okay, this we consider peace positive a type of investment, whether that be a fund or whether that be an enterprise or whether that be a financial instrument, a bond or equity. It can be different things, and it's set up in that way. So it has a complete governance structure. It has, it has the standard that it applies, for instance, and then it also further developed the standard. It's not like set in stone yet. So that is Finance for Peace, but peacefinance.org, I felt I built this because I felt the need to make it much more before we talk about the certification. There's a whole we need to make things also concrete, and how does it really work? And if you're an enterprise or a peace tech organization, what how do you can start using the standard, for instance, and how do you start applying for it, applying it, I mean. So that is where I wanted to make it much more visible and much more concrete, and start also more collaborative kind of work through workshops, and start also showing what's already out there, what others are doing in the field. And that's why I thought this platform would be important. And so this access is actually a stepping stone towards certification, hopefully down the line. If that is how I see peacefinance.org and the platform to finance for peace.
Got it. Okay, so the two work sort of hand in hand together,
Mm.
but basically, peacefinance.org is a place, it's almost like a menu of options and resources and information that you can get if you want to invest to end wars, end conflict. One of the things that, so at B Ventures and like just as like a sort of hustle after 5 p.m. that I'm doing right now is figuring out how to bring together founders, investors, researchers, even students, academics, writers, builders, movie producers all together in one sort of cohesive motion. Like you mentioned hub, and it just made me think of like in order for peace tech to 1000x in the next 10 years and become a $100 billion industry, we will need certifications, we will need
Mm,
courses, we will need successful companies that have the ability to generate revenue and profits and also contribute to peace on the ground. And I just get the sense that technology can be the lever to make that happen, but that hub is missing. And so we're like building something as a side hustle in the evenings on like what that might look like. And I just think that maybe peace, finance, it all sort of should swim together and work together. But right now it seems like everyone in the peace space is like sort of swimming their own directions and like we're all kind of going in the we're all in the same pool, but we're all kind
mm,
of swimming in circles instead of swimming together toward a sort of a you know a goal, a vision.
mm, mm,
And I just think there's so much huge opportunity. I think peace tech is like how crypto was in 2012 or these or climate tech, 15
mm.
years ago when it was like basically like nothing or even cyber like 30 years ago. No one was paying attention to cyber, especially on mobile. And now
Yep.
it's huge. And I just can't help but think that with peacefinance.org, the Peace Finance eHub, with Peace Tech, that these things could be those in which I shared. And I'm just wondering if like you see that vision and ultimately like what vision you do have for the work that you're doing.
No, I mean, I share that vision, Shane. Peace Tech has enormous potential, right? I'm totally with you on that one. The one thing I do want to say, because I'm also a bit cautious about sometimes about, okay, we need to be sure that, whether it's we're working different types of innovation that is data systems, AI tools, platforms for participation. I mean, there is an enormous potential, and at the same time, we want to make sure that it's designed and deployed with peace outcomes in mind. Eh? And and that is also why I think it is where this is where peace finance and particularly the peace finance standard also comes in because it is a way to really um, safeguard, that those innovations are actually contributing to and or like not unintentionally often also do harm. We want to avoid that, and so I do think that is. There are two sides of this. There's enormous potential, and that peace tech can really accelerate peace positive investments. I have no doubt about it, and I am really interested in exploring this also further in some of the initiatives that I'm working on. There's some funds that are being established for IDPs, for instance, at the moment. We could really use peace tech solutions, that can um, think give IDPs access to with digital IDs, for instance, access to the finances that they currently cannot get access to. So there's a whole range of things that it can start measuring, the kind of impact. It can track grievances it can do so many good things, and yet at the same time, we want to make sure that all of these solutions are designed in a way that it's not all it's that it's not also harmful at the same time. We know that we think about dual use goods, for instance. There's ways that we can unfortunately that tech can also be used in for other ways. And so that is for more harmful ways. So that's what we have to be careful about.
I wrestle with this a lot, and I think you bring up a good point. It's like I hear you saying you want to build an ecosystem for peace finance, peace tech, etc. but you also don't want to build technology that contributes towards ending wars, or that you don't want to build technology that contributes towards keeping a war going or sparking a new war or contributing to conflict. And I've wrestled with the same thought, and I'd love to talk this out with you because I've come to the conclusion that you can't create a technology that will 100% not contribute at all to a conflict or a war. Because I just think about like an iPhone, for example, like
Mm, mm.
that is technology that had nothing to do with war, but yet, a terrorist could use it to call in something that is hurtful that could spark a war. So it's like, is it really possible to create technology that is not contributing towards conflict? Because if it's put in the hands of someone bad, which if it's effective technology, they're going to probably try to use it at some point, someone who has ill intent, like how do you wrestle and reconcile that in your
Yeah.
mind?
Yeah, it's not an easy one, but what we often I think what we don't we can look at it differently. I agree with you that take a drone for instance. A drone is yeah, it can be used in different ways. It can be used to really address medicine shortages or food shortages in places where there is need. It can also, as we know, drop bombs. But it cannot. Yeah, this dual tech cannot just be designed to prevent all harm, right? So a drone is a drone, and a satellite image is a satellite image. A machine learning model is a model. So I don't think peace finance standard is really to. It doesn't pretend in a way to that these risks can be sort of, how do you say that, engineered away, right? It's but I do think what we can look at it's not so much the tech side, which is more of the governance side. Hey, the governance structures that should match sort of the political realities and of fragile environments. Yeah, it's a bit like I would say how humanitarian actors look at food distribution or water resources. Eh? It's not those kind of objects that are risky, but it's more who controls it and who benefits from it. That is where the trick is. And so uh, I think, I mean, we should not think about peace tech as being neutral. That's a complete myth. But what we can do, look at it. We can look at that governance side, for instance. So we can look at try to see if we can, when we talk about data, who owns the data, who controls the technology, who authorizes access, who has veto rights, all of these kind of questions that I think we can ask ourselves when tech products are being designed, and then you can start building in some safeguards as well. That's another way of just looking at it, I think.
Yeah. Oh man, you know, I I hear you on the safeguards. I just think if you don't, I just fear, I don't think fear is the right word. I sense that entrepreneurship is already so difficult. Like, it is so hard to scale a technology company and grow a company, even if it's not just tech, just any sort of company is hard to grow, in my view, unless you are, just massively lucky or I think there's an amount of difficulty. And I also think when you're negotiating peace on the ground in a conflict zone, that's also massively difficult,
Mm,
complicated. It's so deeply often about trust and relationships and not really about tech at all when you're trying to solve a conflict in a
mm,
war zone, for
true.
example.
Yeah.
And I just feel like it might be unwise at this point in peace tech's maturity since it's so young and grow it's not young in years but young in size and there's so much potential like you said, which I so agree with. I think you're on the money.
Mm,
Is that will we stunt innovation if we put rules on what should and shouldn't be built.
Mm.
And I'm trying to reconcile that in my mind because I already know how hard it is to build a technology company. It's like, pushing a boulder up a hill. And then it's like, well, if we put rules on it of what that you can and can't build, will that make it even more difficult? Um, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, how do you reconcile that?
Well, you don't hear me say don't build it. I'm
Yeah,
just, I mean, it's with anything, right? If you're building a house, you want to make sure that the foundation is proper, no? And you
true.
don't want to be having to deal with litigation down the line, or you want to just have victims
True.
because the house is just collapsing after 10 years. And just, I mean, it's similar. That's the way I look at it. But I also agree with you. It's a journey. You can't be asking all of potential extras. What you can do is, and this is again, this is why I think the Peace Finance and peacefinance.org also comes in, is to let's workshop this. Let's bring people together, and you don't have to do this, whether it's in Europe or in Silicon Valley, or whether you're in somewhere in Africa. You don't There's ways. You don't have to do this by yourself, and I'm very happy to see what you have also done with the Peace Tech community. I've been now part of this WhatsApp group. And I've been following some of these conversations. That's excellent because there's exchange going, and you can see that people there are also struggling, and with some of the challenges, and how did this, and does somebody know about well, how to address these that's the way to do it, I think, and we will get there. But I do think if you start applying a standard, and a standard, it should not be seen as a sort of no go, no go, or it should be seen as a, hey, let's think about a couple of things. That peace intent, for instance, that I talked about. Let's think about the dual materiality, which is another principle. Hey, how does it affect the conflict? But how does the conflict affect the tech? Let's think about the other principle of trust building, for instance, and inclusiveness. What are some of the ways that we can bring these elements in then and operationalize them that would mitigate some of the risks? Have that. If you think about that, if there is an inclusive process, let's say, that you're looking at that example, for instance, on the IDPs, and you want to make sure that IDPs have more access to credit, and there is a peace tech that allows that to happen. Yeah, let's also make sure that the IDPs communities become part of that design. See it as clients, right? And when you do that, I think you're already starting gradually to not only you're really looking at how this is going to be used and so, but also how it could potentially be misused. And once that reveals itself, and then you can also start together jointly thinking about how to put in some of the safeguards. Look, I'm not saying all of this is very, very easy thing to do. But I'm also not saying, oh, you shouldn't do this and you shouldn't do that, because it doesn't work like that. You can gradually just um, find your way by applying some of the standards.
Yeah, for sure. For those who are building technology right now, what would be like an example of a standard?
Yeah, the one that I was already alluding to, that inclusiveness is a very important part of any kind of, whether it's peace tech or any kind of design. It's that it includes those that are being actually using or affected by it, essentially. That's an important part. Being also transparent about if it's about data showing, well, okay, how it's being used, Because there is that trust element involved. And if it's not working, let's make sure you have some sort of mechanism in place that where you can capture those some of the grievances, for instance. And that is also a way to just find, okay, we need to make sure that there are some corrective measures on the way. It doesn't mean you have to just stop. It's like with any other product that is not safe, or that you find out that it needs tweaking and it needs fixing, and that's what you should look at it this way as well. It just truthfully, yeah, it's more a bit more complex, but I wouldn't say totally out of whack, really.
Got it. And you mentioned a couple moments ago about you're seeing like momentum in the space and the work that you're doing. You mentioned funds. I guess tell us like what are the things that are moving in the space? What progress are you making? What are some things that you're excited about related to that?
Well, there are some of really big players that have embraced peace finance, and I think I may have in a conversation mentioned, for instance, the African Development Bank. The African Development Bank has a specific mandate, and that is development. But it is also these last 2 years realizing that with that development, they need to, in the more fragile settings, they need to really consider, yes, more the dynamics, and not always assume, right, that development is always positive, right? So it has now, in a nutshell, really just embraced this peace finance, and being applying a peace lens to its, well, it wants to entire portfolio essentially. That's not going to happen overnight, as you all understand it, but it's enormous that it has taken that step to say, look, we realize that we want to also contribute to stability. We want to contribute to the cohesion. We want to make sure that we reach the groups that are excluded and bring them in. That we and we also think that it's not just a moral thing to do. It's also we see the opportunities in doing so, because we are addressing the stability, and we are making sure that fragility is addressed, and that's the way really that it helps that development. And you know the saying, there's no development without peace, and there's no peace without development, and that's really true, and that's what they've embraced. So that's just one big player, but there's others. As I mentioned, for instance, I'm working with some funds now and setting up this humanitarian development and peace fund that starts in some. We're raising funds for it now from investors. It starts in Somalia and will go gradually spread hopefully through the Horn of Africa. It's focused on IDPs, but it's about peace positive businesses. It's about assisting local SMEs, essentially early startups, as well as the more mature type of businesses, to become, and not overnight, but to become peace positive. That is a micro lending organization to ensure that there is a really specific funding mechanisms that addresses exclusive, groups that have been excluded, for instance. It all depends on the context, essentially. What, what businesses, whether small or large, can do within their own scope of work. We're looking at another in particular instrument, and to develop an orange peace bond, which combines sort of the gender and peace lens together. So these are a couple of examples that are currently underway, and I'm really excited to be part of that. But there's also a much small, like I mentioned to you before we had this conversation. I was at the Impact Fest last week, and there was such interest in peace finance from yeah, from everyone that I really spoken to was such a pleasant surprise. Really also understanding that the the way peace finance works is that it helps address contributes to resilience on the ground, and quite a few of the people that were there, that we have, the organizations that they work with, they also saw the potential to make their own starts thinking about their own financial model, and to see if the peace finance could become a sort of investable model for themselves as if they apply that. So they, yeah, it is really gaining ground, and so I'm really excited and that this happening.
It's incredible. Can you give a little bit more specifics, like how many companies are being invested in? Are these funds starting out really small and then getting big? Like, what's kind of the trajectory and the scope? Just because I imagine people are curious.
Yeah, I mean, some of it is fairly big, like the humanitarian development peace fund that I was describing. It's 50 million. It's quite decent, and when we're talking about, what the African Development Bank has in mind, and also launching peace bonds next year, that's kind of that's that's big. But then we're also talking about much more smaller initiatives that um, yeah, so it really differs. But the market itself, we did a bit of research on that. We did look at, we found out that our estimates was between, conservative estimates, 30, around 40 billion market for peace finance. And that's pretty decent to start with. So yeah, that's what we're looking at. And so the intention is eventually, especially with finance for peace, is to create a market for it. Yeah.
How will you know that you are you're creating a market for it? How will you know that like you've arrived or like yes, Finance for Peace is successful? Is there like a target or a goal that they're moving towards or is it still being decided?
Um, well, I have it sort of in my head, but no, I mean it's not like a fixed figure or anything like it. But it's about right now. It is still trying to convince, raising awareness about it. And this is, by the way, Shane, this is really helpful. So to spread the word and say, hey, look at this. This is interesting. You might want to explore it. But what I'm and it's gradually coming that people are, impact investors are calling me and say, okay, I heard about you. What were you doing? Tell me. I'm interested. I want to put, and that is, I think, when things start, when there is that demand is there, when it's not about pulling somebody at its jacket, right, and say, "Hey, have you heard about peace finance?" No, they've heard it. They're coming to not only to me, but to and join. And so that is, I think, when it becomes, then you really start, market him with the supply and demand eventually coming together. Yeah.
Yeah. Ah, I see the potential and I see it as like a slice of the same pie. Like we're doing
Mm,
Peace Tech on the venture
mm,
capital. It's very early stage sort of companies pre-seed, seed, and Series A. It seems like what you're doing is your slice of the pie is like you're doing development. Like you mentioned Somalia, like you're investing large amounts of money or trying to generate interest in people investing a large amount of money in a specific region or regions. I just think like to generate awareness and convince people, one of the things that I've like put out into the world is that we want this to be $100 billion industry.
mm,
It's like it makes it tangible and it
mm,
catches the attention. There's so many things that people can listen to, read, and be absorbed by myself included, like, the death scroll when you're on social media where you just scroll, scroll, scroll. It's like, how can we be the us? How can peace become a scroll stopper?
Hmm.
And I think we do that by being bold and humble and courageous and audacious. And ultimately, I think that's what a peace builder is, and honest with one another too. And I feel like you're really onto something. So I'm so glad that you went to Impact Fest and had good conversations. And it sounds like people are hungry for this. I'm seeing the same thing, but on the founder level and investor level, who's sort of like in the startup realm. Um, like, what's the bridge? If there was a bridge between what you're doing and like what we're doing, what do you think it might be?
Well, I think we're starting to explore this right here, Shane. It's like I'm really excited about the Peace Tech community that you're building, and also your the role by of B Ventures. That is it's very crucial in this sense, and it's great to have those kind of ambitions. And I think we're standing really at the moment here in that we can let's see if we can bring peace tech and peace finance together, right? And let's see how we can make that happen, and how we can support both of us, founders who are building solutions for peace. And that is, I think that I would love to see if we how we can work together, how we can apply the peace finance standard, not in the way that some people here we talked about as a sort of uh, stop and go, but just as a way to also expand the opportunities and make it also investable. Because I do think when you want to scale and you want to just and you want to grow, it needs to be done in a structured way. It needs to be done according to a methodology, and that's what this the standard eventually brings. And if you can now, then you can create that credibility, and that is also needed, I
Got
think.
it. Yeah. So there's so much good in what you just said. I thought of just building on your ideas. I thought of a
Mm,
couple things. It's like the funds that you mentioned today in our conversation,
mm,
typically they want exposure to like what's coming next. So
mm,
they want to stay agile and innovative, but the truth is they can't because they're so big. And it's impossible because there are thousands of people in some cases, or they're a huge nonprofit, so they're not actually building technology.
mm.
So like they want exposure to innovation and cutting edge tools. They want
Yeah,
to know like what's coming before it arrives. And then the startups, the builders on the ground, the techies and the investors, they want like regions that are stable and not fragile. They want places and countries where people can flourish and buy their technology and use it. They also want
sure.
more peace. I think also investment, like founders who start with a small company, eventually may want one of the funds that you're talking about to invest in their company
Mm,
as a direct investor. Um, and also the funds that are being sparked up from Peace Tech as well, all over the world. I think in the next 2 years, you're going to see $100 million plus venture capital funds, private equity funds focused on peace. And I think that the people you're working with might be interested in that because it gives them exposure to these sort of different asset classes beyond what they're already doing, which I think is in a sense like making it more investable. So those are a couple things that I'm
mm.
thinking about that might be overlap to like expand the pie.
Yeah. No, I think you're right, and I like your thinking, and I think that's exactly right. And it is so it's not just about the peace tech being able to contribute, with their solutions to peace, but it's also to benefit from the peace that is being created. And so and so yeah, we gotta what we gotta do is Shane, and we gotta just yeah to bring that all together so we can the kind of in bigger initiatives that I'm now working with, and see how we can make the connections to smaller tech companies that can and actually also benefit from it again. So yeah, that's a great way of looking at it, I think.
All right. Well, if you run a fund, you got to reach out to Marcel. Talk to Marcel.
Well,
And if you're building a company, a startup company in tech, come talk to me. And there's got to be some overlap here. But
mm.
um, just as we wrap up the show, where can people find you? And what's coming next for you in the months ahead?
They can find me through peacefinance.org or just, write to Marcel at peacefinance.org. That is the best way to reach me at this moment. So it's, yeah, it's, uh, and yeah, the things that, what I'm going to be working on, I mentioned some of them already. We at the moment need to also put things to test, to make sure it's, and it's not, and that's going to be also a journey, and it's also going to be challenging um, we need to do a lot of fundraising for it. This isn't just coming, just easily. So that's a lot of the focus is on that at the moment. So yeah.
That's good. That's really,
Yeah.
really good. Well,
Mm,
I'm so grateful that you came on the show and thanks for, just bringing awareness
mm,
to what's possible. You know, I get the sense that when people see that their finances can be stewarded for peace, they're intrigued by it.
mm,
Most people want peace. Most people don't want to have to deal with war and conflict. It's honestly not good for anyone. Like, no one really wins in a conflict except maybe the few at the very, very, very top. And that's even that, it could not work out for them. So, and I hope that it doesn't because peace will prevail and we're gonna make peace tech into, such a powerful force for good. It's already happening. And also, thank you for being in the WhatsApp group as well of Peace Tech innovators in the ecosystem. It's like just through small connections that this thing can really build. And so that thing has grown. It's like 10x in size the last year. It started with just like 5 or 10 people, which is so cool. And thanks to Brian Abrams and some good people who started it. So just Marcel, such a blessing to have you on the show. Check out Marcel's info. It's all linked in the show notes, and we'll catch you in the next episode.